Today I'm going to deliver my talk on the multiplicity of A alpha eigenvalues for T-gen graph. So this is the outline. So first I'll discuss a little bit about introductions and preliminaries, and then I'll start from the literature survey, and in this directions I'll show some of our contribution. So as you know, in spectral graph theory, mostly we are dealing with graphs and matrices. So here we discuss the properties of graph. Here we utilize graph properties in terms of their associated matrix properties and vice versa. So there are different matrices can be associated with a graph. Some of them are like adjacency matrix, Laplacian distance, and many more matrices. Among such matrices, adjacency matrix is one of the interesting matrices in spectral graph theory. So in this seminar, I am interested in looking for a new class of adjacency matrices, and that is A alpha matrix of T-gen graph. So this is a generalization of adjacency matrix. So on this class of matrices, I'll discuss how the multiplicity of an eigenvalue for such class of matrices is related to n and delta. So here n is the number of vertices and delta is the largest vertex. So first, in next few slides, I'll discuss what is A alpha matrix of a T-gen graph and why this is a generalization of adjacency matrix. Okay. So let's start from recalling some of the basic spectral graph theoretic terminology. So G, be a simple graph, means it doesn't have any loop or multiple edges, and V of G be its vertex set. They are indexed by V1, V2 up to Vn. Two vertices, Vi and Vj, they are connected by an edge. Then we call that Vi is adjacent to Vj, and the edge in between them is denoted by Eij. The degree of a vertex Vj is d of Vj. This is nothing but the number of vertices adjacent with Vj. The maximum vertex degree is the maximum among all vertex degree and all degree of the all vertices. So this is simply denoted by the capital delta. The degree matrix of a graph G, this is a diagonal n cross n matrix, and its ith entries is nothing but the degree of the vertex Vi. And the adjacency matrix of a graph G, this is n cross n symmetric, real symmetric matrix, and its ith entries is 1 if the vertices Vi and Vj are adjacent to each other and 0 otherwise. Now the nullity of a graph G is the nullity of its associated adjacency matrix A of G, and this is denoted by eta of G. So since A of G is symmetric, real symmetric matrix, so the nullity of A of G is basically the multiplicity of zero eigenvalue of A of G. Well, now here we can see we have two matrices. One is the degree matrix, another is adjacency matrix. If we add these two matrices, then we get signless Laplacian matrix. So signless Laplacian matrix is another interesting associated matrix in spectral graph theory, and also it has different spectral properties than A of G. So to gradually track the gradual changes of spectral properties of signless Laplacian matrix and adjacency matrix, Nikiforov introduced the concept of A alpha matrix. So the A alpha matrix of a graph G, this is a convex combination of D of G and A of G. So A alpha G is what? Basically this is alpha times degree matrix plus 1 minus alpha times adjacency matrix. So if we plug alpha is equal to 0 here, we get adjacency matrix, and if we plug alpha is equal to half, we get half of the signless Laplacian matrix. So this notation is nothing but the multiplicity of an eigenvalue lambda for this matrix A alpha G. So this denotes the multiplicity of lambda of an multiplicity of lambda as an eigenvalue of A alpha G. So particularly if we plug alpha is equal to 0, then we get adjacency matrix of the graph, and at the same time if we plug lambda is equal to 0, then we get the multiplicity of 0 eigenvalue. Therefore basically M0, G comma 0, this is nothing but the nullity of the graph. Okay. Now we are going to the another interesting class of adjacency matrices, that is T-gain adjacency matrix. So T-gain adjacency matrix is the adjacency matrix associated with a T-gain graph. So what is T-gain graph? So T-gain graph is a complex unit gain graph. This is simply say that this is a T-gain graph. Well, so what is T-gain graph? So G be an undirected graph and V of G vertex set, indexed by V1, V2 up to Vn and E of G is set. Then an oriented edge from the vertex Vs to Vt is denoted by EST arrow. Therefore, we can see for each undirected edge EST is associated with a pair of oriented edges. One is from Vs to Vt, another is from Vt to Vs. Now, if you take the collections of all such oriented edges, then we get oriented collections of oriented edges associated with the graph G. This is the collection of all oriented edges associated with the graph G. Now T, this is a unit circle. Collections of all complex number with modulus 1. Then a gain function on a graph capital G is a mapping from EG bar to T, such that if in one direction the value of this function, this is known as the gain. So if in one orientation the gain of an oriented edge is G, then the reverse orientation the gain will be G inverse. Therefore, phi of EST is equal to phi of ETS inverse for every edge EST belongs to E of G. So this is the gain function. Now a complex unit gain graph or T-gain graph on an underlying graph capital G is denoted by this pair G comma phi, where G is the underlying graph and phi is a gain function. And sometimes this is simply denoted by capital phi. So let's see one example. Here we have one undirected graph G. We are taking one T-gain graph phi1. So in this T-gain graph, we can see in this orientation the gain of this edge is I. Therefore, in the reverse orientation, gain will be minus I. So if we change the gain of its oriented edges, we can have different T-gain graph. So here we have another T-gain graph. So in this way, if we change the gain of its oriented edges, then we have uncountable many T-gain graphs. So each one of them have the same structure capital G, but we have different T-gain graph associated with this. Now, as we know the adjacency matrix of an undirected graph G, so here in a canonical way we can define the adjacency matrix of a T-gain graph phi1. So the adjacency matrix of a T-gain graph phi1 is a Hermitian n cross n matrix, and if ST entries is nothing but the gain of the oriented edges of the orientations from the vertex Vs to V. So that is phi of EST arrow and 0 otherwise. Now here we can see that if this phi, if our phi is the identity function, means every time if we get this value 1, then basically this is nothing but our adjacency matrix of our undirected graph. If the phi is taken value plus or minus 1, then we get the adjacency matrix of sine graph. If this value is coming from 1 or plus minus I, then we get this is the adjacency matrix of a this is a Hermitian adjacency matrix of a digraph. Therefore, adjacency matrix of a T-gain graph or simply T-gain adjacency matrix, they are nothing but the generalization of all such matrices. So these all matrices can be thought of as a considered as a T-gain graph, T-gain adjacency matrix. Okay. Therefore, here we can see each one of them is associated with a unique adjacency matrix. So here this is A of phi1, this is A of phi2. So here we have A of phi1 is this. So here we can see from 1 to 3. In this orientation, the gain is e to the power I pi by 4. Therefore, the 1, 3 entries is here e to the power I pi by 4. Right? So in the reverse orientation, the value will be e to the power minus I pi by 4. So here we have 3, 1 entries is what? E to the power minus I pi by 4. Okay. So now, previously we have already seen the Nikiforov introduced the concept of A alpha matrix of a undirected graph G. So now here similarly in an unified approach we can consider the A alpha matrix of each one of them. A alpha matrix of each one of them, and they are nothing but the A alpha matrix of a T-gain graph. So the A alpha matrix of a T-gain graph phi is defined as alpha times D of alpha plus 1 minus alpha D of phi and plus 1 minus alpha times A of phi. Okay. So this is the degree matrix of a T-gain graph phi. By the way, this is nothing but the degree matrix of its undirected graph. So if we plug alpha is equal to 0, similarly we get the adjacency matrix of a T-gain graph phi. Okay. Now this denotes the multiplicity of an eigenvalue lambda of this matrix A alpha phi, right? So particularly when we take alpha is equal to 0 and at the same time lambda is equal to 0, we get nothing but the nullity of A of phi, and this is the nullity of phi. Sorry. That's all. So let us recall again. So here we are only considering the 4 different type of matrices. So one is undirected, for undirected graph G, we consider adjacency matrix of G. So Nikiforov introduced another generalization of A of G. This is A alpha matrix of G. On the other hand, we can see A alpha matrix of a T-gain graph phi. So if we take our gain graph phi is balanced or phi is equal to 1, then we get the adjacency matrix of its undirected graph. So in an unified approach, we can take the generalization of A of phi as a A alpha phi. So this is A alpha phi. This is A alpha matrix for T-gain graph phi. So A alpha matrix of a T-gain graph phi, this can also be considered as a generalization of this matrix, right? So this is the most generalization matrix because all the matrices are the particular cases of A alpha phi. So now here these two matrices, they are real matrix, and here another two matrices, they are complex matrix. So in this seminar, we will show how the multiplicity of an eigenvalue of this bigger class of matrices is related to the number of vertices and the largest vertex field. Okay. But in the literature survey, so in literature survey, we will start from this base case, means we will start from adjacency matrix of a graph. And here we are not considering any eigenvalue. Here only we consider the zero eigenvalue. Then the multiplicity of a zero eigenvalue is nothing but the nullity of a graph. So we will start considering the nullity of undirected graph, and we see how they are related to number of vertices and the largest vertex field. Okay. So here we have first result. So let P be a undirected T, then the nullity of P is less than is equal to this quantity in term of n and delta. So T is a particular type of bipartite graph. So later on we can see there is a result on arbitrary bipartite graph G. So G be any arbitrary bipartite graph, then the nullity of G is less than is equal to this quantity in term of n and delta. It is appeared in 2016. So in 2018 we can see if G is any arbitrary graph, then nullity of G is less than is equal to this. And in the most recent result, if our G is a connected graph, then we have the nullity of a graph is less than is equal to this quantity. Okay. So many authors prove this result almost at the same time. So now here only we consider the nullity of a undirected graph. Now we consider the problem in more general setup. Instead of considering the nullity, that is the multiplicity of zero eigenvalue, now we are looking for the multiplicity of any arbitrary eigenvalue. So that is one general setup, and another setup, as A of G is a particular case of A alpha G. So we consider here A alpha G instead of A of G, right? Then immediately we have one result. The multiplicity of an eigenvalue lambda of A alpha G, we have this multiplicity is less than is equal to this quantity. So it is appeared in 2019. Now on the other hand, now we look into the class of T-gain matrices, right? So let us recall again. So phi be any connected T-gain graph, and A of phi, D of phi, they are degree adjacency matrices. A alpha phi is the convex combination of this, and this is the multiplicity of lambda as an eigenvalue of A alpha G. Then if we plug alpha at the same time lambda is equal to 0, we get the nullity of phi. So we have immediate one result on nullity of phi in term of n and delta. So the most recent result on phi gain graph, the eta of phi is less than is equal to delta minus 1 into n divided by delta. So this is appearing in 2020. Now what we have in literature survey, so the most recent result on undirected graph, and here only the nullity of G, we have this result, nullity of G is less than is equal to this. Now in 2019, the nullity of the multiplicity of any eigenvalue lambda for this graph, for this matrices is less than is equal to this quantity, right? Now here in 2020, the multiplicity of zero eigenvalue or the nullity of phi is less than is equal to this. Now here is our result. So myself and my supervisor, Dr. M. Rajesh Kandam, proved this result that the multiplicity of any eigenvalue of A alpha phi is less than is equal to this quantity, right? So there are main three significance of this result. So first, we can see when we plug alpha is equal to 1, we get adjacency matrix of phi, right? So therefore, when we plug here alpha is equal to 0, right, alpha is equal to 1, we get the nullity of phi is less than is equal to this quantity, right? And by a simple calculation, we can see this is better bound than the bound given in this paper, right? So the first significance is our results improve the given bound for phi gain graph. Okay, the another significance at A alpha P is the extensions of A alpha G. So our result is a extended result than the result given in this paper in 2019, right? And also the proof of our result also simplify the proof given in this paper, right? So there are mainly these three significance of our results. So now also the formal statement. So let phi be any connected P gain graph of n vertices and maximum vertex degree delta. And this is the multiplicity of lambda as an eigenvalue of A alpha phi. Then the multiplicity is less than is equal to delta minus 2 into n plus 2 divided by delta minus 1. And this is the characterization. The equality holds if and only one of the following statement holds. Okay. These are the three significances. Now we are going to the sketch of the proof. Let phi be any connected P gain graph and the vertex set of phi indexed by u1 vn and the maximum vertex degree delta greater than is equal to 2. So one of the key idea in this theorem is zero forcing number. So what is zero forcing number? Now this is all about the zero forcing set. So what is zero forcing set? So the notion of zero forcing set of a simple graph G is introduced in 2008. So first they define a rule, color change rule. So what is color change rule? Let G be a simple graph such that each vertex of G is colored either black or red. Suppose the vertex Vi is a black vertex and all of its neighbors are black except a neighbors, let's say Vj, which is red, then we can change the red neighbors to black. We can change the color of the neighbors, red neighbors to black. So that is the color change rule. I'll give one example and then it would be more clear. Then what is derived set? So derived set of a given coloring of G is the resulting coloring after applying color change rule such that no more changes are possible. Means we continuously apply color change rule so that no more changes are possible. At that time, the coloring of the graph will be the derived coloring of the given coloring of G, right? Now, what is zero forcing set? So, a subset Z of the vertex set J, vertex set of G is called zero forcing set of G if initially the vertices of Z are all colored black and the remaining vertices are colored red, and at that time after applying color change rule our derived coloring of G are all black. So then in the then our set Z, this is the collections of all black color. Initially, this is the collection of all black color. That is the zero forcing set. So I give one example in order to be more clear. So first I'll show one counter example. So suppose this is one given coloring. So color is either black or red. So this is one given coloring. Now we find out the vertex in which it has exactly one red nailer. So we can see this vertex here. It has exactly one red nailer, right? So therefore, the color of this red neighbors will be black in the next step, right? So this is black. This became black. Now here we have these two vertex which has exactly one red neighbor. So now this red neighbors will be black now after applying color change rule. So this is black. Now no more color change is possible because this vertex we have three red neighbors, for this vertex two red neighbors, this vertex two red neighbors, right? So no more color change is possible. So this is the derived coloring. So this is our given coloring and this is our derived coloring. As we have still some red neighbors in our derived coloring, so this is, so therefore the given in given set, the set of black vertices, they are not forming a zero forcing set. They are not forming a zero forcing set. Now one example of zero forcing set. Suppose this is one given coloring. Now we continuously apply color change rule. So first we can see this vertex, it has exactly one red neighbor. So now we will change this red to black. Okay. Now we can say in the next sketch, this all three black vertices has exactly one red neighbor. So now we change this red to black. And continuously we can change. And in this case, finally, we get this black, all vertices become black, right? Therefore, this is our given coloring and this is derived coloring. As derived coloring, it has all vertices black. So therefore, in given coloring, this set of black vertices, they form a zero forcing set. There will be a zero forcing set, right? Well, now we can observe that we have, for a particular graph, we have many different set of zero forcing set, right? But we are basically interested to find the zero forcing number. So what is zero forcing number? So zero forcing number is the cardinality of this is basically zero forcing number is the cardinality of mod of z over all zero forcing set. So the minimum cardinality of zero forcing set, that is the zero forcing number. That is the zero forcing number. So we have one immediate result on zero forcing number. So for any connected graph G with delta greater than is equal to 0, then Z of G is less than is equal to this. And equality occurs if and only if the G is either cycle or complete graph or complete bipeptide graph with equal partition size. So here we use this result. Now the next idea, we define M of phi. So M of phi, this is the maximum cardinality of all matrices B which is coming from H of phi. So what is H of phi? So the constructions of H of phi. So let Hn denote the set of all Hermitian matrices of order n. We take one matrix B from Hn. So B is one Hermitian matrix, n% Hermitian matrix. For this matrix B, we define G of B. So G of B is another Hermitian matrix of same order, and its ijth entries is defined as Bij by mod of Bij, where Bij is the ijth entries of this matrix B and 0 otherwise. Let phi be any T-gain graph on n vertices. Then a matrix B, then a Hermitian matrix B is called matrix of type phi if the ijth entries of GB is same as the ijth entries of its adjacency matrix, that is A of phi. Then we call this Hermitian matrix is of type phi. Now we take the collections of all matrix B of type phi, right? All Hermitian matrix of type phi. So this is H of phi. And what is M of phi? The M of phi, this is the maximum cardinality of all matrix of all Hermitian matrix B of type phi, right? So here we can observe that adjacency matrix of a T graph phi itself belong to this class, right? Therefore, as M of phi is maximum, so the nullity of adjacency matrix of phi is less than is equal to M of phi, right? So now here we take if B is any matrix of type phi, therefore eta of B will always be less than is equal to M of phi because this is the maximum. Now the another claim, M of phi is less than is equal to Z of G. What is G here? G is the underlying graph of phi, right? So to prove this result, we have to prove two lemmas. Okay. Let Y be any vector in Cn, right? Then the support of Y is the index of then the support of Y is the set of indices such that its associated component is non-zero. So for real symmetric matrices, this result is known. Now we are going to prove it for complex matrices. So let phi be any T-gain graph and Z be a zero forcing set of phi. And B is any matrix of type. Then if we take one vector from the null space of B, then the support of Y intersection Z is phi, then Y must be zero. Then Y must be zero. So here we take any vector from the null space of B, and if the support of Y intersection Z is phi, then our Y is zero, right? So V of phi, this is the vertex set of phi. If our Z is our full vertex set V of phi, if Z is our full vertex set V of phi, then we can see from this relation, this is V of phi, therefore the support is empty, therefore Y is zero. Suppose Z is a proper subset of V of phi, right? Then as Z is a zero forcing set, so Z contains at least a vertex, let's say Vi, which is black, and all of its vertices, all of its neighbor vertices, they are black except a vertex, let's say Vt, which is red, right? Now we are looking for the ith entries of B of Y. So if we look into the ith entries of B of Y, so here we can see as the all neighbors vertices of Vi is black, so its associated Y component is 0 except the T component. So we only get here non-zero T, Yt. So Bit into Yt, that is non-zero, and this is equal to 0. As Bit is non-zero, so Yt must be 0. So what we get? So if we have a red neighbor, then when we apply color change rule, so when that red neighbors became black, then at the same time that Vt, the component associated with that red neighbors became 0, right? So that's why the name of this Z set is zero forcing set, because here we start from non-zero entries, and as Z is a zero forcing number, so it forces other non-zero entries to become 0. So as Z is a zero forcing set, so the all component finally became black, so therefore its all associated Y component became 0, right? So therefore Y is equal to 0. Now another known result, we recall one known result, we will use this result in the next lemma. So B be any square matrix on some field, and eta of B is greater than S, the nullity of B is greater than S, right? Then there exists a non-zero vector Y coming from the null space vanishing at a specified position, right? Now the final claim, so phi be any T-gain graph, then M of phi is less than or equal to Z of G. Suppose this is not true, right? Z be a zero forcing set of phi. Suppose this is not true, then M of phi that would be greater than mod of Z, right? Well, now what is M of phi? This is the maximum cardinality of all matrix of type phi, right? So therefore there exists a matrix B of type phi such that the nullity of B that should be greater than mod of Z, right? Okay. Now we compare this with that statement. Therefore there exists a non-zero vector Y belongs to the kernel of B such that the support of Y intersection Z is equal to 0. This is nothing but the vanishing at a specified position. Then from the previous lemma, we can see Y is equal to 0, because in the previous statement we have this assumption. Then we get Y is equal to 0. But here we assume that Y is non-zero. So this is a contradiction. Therefore, m of phi is less than is equal to mod z. Since z is any arbitrary zero forcing set, so m of phi is less than is equal to z of g. So we take this claim here. Now finally, let alpha coming from this and a alpha is a convex combination of this, right? Let lambda be any arbitrary eigenvalue of a alpha phi. Now we consider b as a alpha phi minus lambda times I. Therefore, as this is Hermitian, therefore the nullity of b is same as the multiplicity of lambda. So eta of b is same as the multiplicity of lambda in a alpha phi, right? Now we are going to show that here b is of type phi. That means b belongs to H of phi. That we are going to show. So therefore, we look into the ijth entries of GB. So ijth entries of GB, this is equal to Bij by mod Bij. Therefore, from this expression, we can get 1 minus alpha times Aij by mod of this. Therefore, finally, we get A alpha, A phi Ij. Because mod of Aij, they are unit numbers, so it becomes 1. Huh? So therefore, finally, what we get, the ijth entries of GB is same as the ijth entries of A of phi. Therefore, B belongs to H of phi, right? B belongs to H of P. If B belongs to H of P, then eta of P must be less than M of P. So beta of P, then sorry, eta of B less than is equal to M of P. So here we have eta of B less than is equal to M of P. This is one statement. And M of P less than is equal to Z of G, and Z of G less than is equal to this. So combining these three statements together with this, we get the multiplicity of lambda is less than is equal to this point, right? Now we are going to the characterization. So if this multiplicity is equal to this, then all the inner inequality became equal. Now only we look into the last inequality. If Z of G is less than is equal to this, then previously we have seen they are equal if and only if the structure of G must be either cycle or Kn or the complete bipartite graph of same partition size, right? So the structure must be same. So now here we consider the structure of G is Kn by 2 n by 2, right? So phi be any Tn graph on a complete bipartite graph. And also the multiplicity of lambda is equal to this. As delta is equal to n by 2 here, so finally we get this multiplicity is equal to n minus 2, right? If the multiplicity of lambda is n minus 2, then we can see that there exists a eigenvalue mu of A of phi, which has multiplicity n minus 2, right? And mu and lambda are related by this. So what we get? We get A of phi has one eigenvalue mu with multiplicity n minus 2. Now what is A of phi? So what is phi? Phi is a bipartite graph, right? So therefore the eigenvalues are symmetric about origin, and also one eigenvalue of phi is one eigenvalue of phi, that is mu, is of multiplicity n minus 2. Therefore what we can say? So we can say the mu must be 0. If mu is 0, then the multiplicity of 0 eigenvalue is what? N minus 2. Therefore the rank of phi is equal to 2. Now the delta, the largest vertex degree of phi is greater than is equal to 2, so it contains a cycle C4. So C4 is an induced cycle. Therefore, the rank of C4 must be less than is equal to the rank of C, and also the rank of C4, this is greater than is equal to 2, and it is less than is equal to 2. Therefore, the rank of C4 is 2. So the rank of a C4 gain cycle of length 4 is 2, right? By an easy calculation, we can show that then the gain of this C4 is 1. Therefore, that C4 is neutral. C4 is neutral. Therefore, any 4 cycle in phi is neutral, right? Now we take any arbitrary cycle of length C2k. So it has k vertices, right? Then the gain of this cycle C4 can be written as, can be decomposed by the product of the gain of this inside 4 cycle. All these 4 cycles, right? Right? Like V1, V2, V3, V4, and come back to V1. Again, V1, V4, and so on, and V6 and V1, right? Then inside this gain value, the product of this gain value, that will be 1. So finally, the product of all these 4 cycles will be gain of these 4 cycles will be nothing but the gain of the cycle C2k. As we know, the inside all cycle, their gain value is 1. Therefore, finally, the gain of this cycle that became 1, right? So in this way, we can see the gain of this cycle is nothing but the product of the gain of all inside cycles, and since their all values are 1, therefore their product is 1. So therefore, any arbitrary cycle in phi is neutral, therefore phi is balanced, right? So it is a balanced, complete bipartite graph of same partition size. And what is lambda here? Since mu is equal to 0 here, so therefore the lambda is n alpha by 2. Similarly, we can prove the other cases, right? So this is the characterization of our main result. And finally, last one improvement result. So let phi be any connected T-gain graph with maximum vertex degree delta greater than 0. So how we extend this result? Here we exclude some particular graphs. Okay, we exclude only this graph and we see that the eta of phi is less than or equal to this. So this is the better bound than other bound presented here. So eta of phi, here we only consider the nullity of a T-gain graph phi, and this is less than or equal to this. So this is the better bound. If and only phi it does not belongs to this. Okay. So one can always consider a problem to find a better bound even for the undirected graph G in terms of n and phi by excluding some particular graphs. Like here we exclude these 2 particular graphs and we get the better bound of the nullity of phi, right? So in a similar way, one can always consider a problem to find a better bound of a graph G in terms of n and delta by excluding some particular graphs. So these are the results I want to present here. These are the references, and this is the paper we just submitted. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Aniruddha. Thank you for the interesting talk. Yeah. So, audience, if you have any question, you can ask now. Okay, I think if there is no question, we will just thank Aniruddha one more time. Yeah, thank you, Aniruddha. Yeah.
Thank
so I will. Yeah. Wait a minute.
Okay. Thank you, sir.